You're listening to the BJJ Globetrotters Pirate Radio podcast, brought to you from St. Bart in the French West Indies. We talk jiu-jitsu, traveling, and people who do things a bit different in life. I am your host, Christian Graugard. Hello everyone, I am back. This podcast has taken a little kind of summer holiday, you can say. It hasn't really been on purpose, but I think it's been more than 4 months, almost 5 months since I posted the last episode. I had plenty of ideas and of things I wanted to record and post. Plenty of things on my to-do list, and pretty much every day when I've been at my computer, I put on my list today, you need to work on the podcast. But this summer has just been absolutely insane. I've traveled a lot. I did 5 or 6 camps since the last podcast episode. And I've just been so busy, it's kind of been down the list a little bit. But that's fine. I kind of like that the podcast project is somewhat of a slow project that I'm not really in a rush making. But anyway, the summer is over. I did 5 camps. I think at some point I did like 4 camps in 2 months, or something like that. It was absolutely wild. Maybe a little bit more intense of a summer than I wanted it to be, but hey, we had a great time. So we did the big summer camp in Belgium, almost immediately followed by Greenland, where we flew directly on to Iceland. And this was all within like 2.5 weeks or something, 3 weeks. Then came back I flew back to Denmark, went on a little holiday with the family, and then we did the big one in Germany, which was amazing. We had an actual wedding at the camp. I think that was the first. And then like a month ago or something, I came back from Poland, from the camp in Poland, which is always a very unique experience. Anyway, so I'm back in the basement, and things are starting to go a little bit fast again, because on Monday we're hosting the Caribbean Island camp here in St. Bart. And a lot of people arrive early. There's going to be 50 people at the camp, but I think at least 30 or 40 arrive this week, with the first one coming in tomorrow. So starting tomorrow, I am going to be busy picking up people all the time at the airport and the ferry. But it's going to be exciting to have a camp here. It's been a while. The last one was in February, I think, or something. So let's get on with this episode. This is a very interesting interview because it's actually been kind of almost 4 years in the making. And it's a long story, but it's also a very interesting story. It's a story about following your dream and failing at it, and then trying again and eventually succeeding. It's a pretty crazy project these 2 Swedish guys did, and I was very happy to finally catch Viktor on Skype the other day. We've been trying to set up an appointment for this interview forever, like literally for months, but our schedules kind of didn't match. And but now we're back, and the podcast is back on, and I'm very excited to play this interview for you. I hope you'll enjoy it, and I'll be back once it's over. Hey, Viktor.
Hey there, Christian. How are you doing?
I'm good, and you?
Perfect. Very well.
So we're doing this interview today, and it's actually been underway for a while.
I think we started talking about it for 2-3 months ago, maybe.
Yeah, even more. I think it was more.
Maybe.
And I would say this talk is going back all the way to when you contacted me, which I just looked through my old emails, and you wrote me the very first time, February 2015. So it's like almost 4 years ago. So we've been kind of keeping in touch a little bit, like here and there, on and off, for almost 4 years, and I never really had the chance to kind of ask all the questions I wanted to ask. I have a lot of questions because I was looking through all the old emails and all the stuff we tried to do and what you ended up doing, and I was just writing down a few questions I wanted to ask here, and there's a lot. We have a lot to talk about, you and me. So I hope you're comfortably seated in Stockholm, right? Are you in Stockholm now?
Yeah. I just got back approximately 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
So we'll start work again in less than a month now. So
exciting. Let's get back to that. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. February 2015, you sent me an email. I actually have it right here. Me and a friend will try to sail around the world with a sailboat, a tiny one. Everyone should know this boat is like fucking ridiculously tiny. Starting in August 2015. Try to train as much as possible. Do you have any interest in doing like a Globetrotters sailboat or something? We have room for 4 people. Blah, blah, blah. I think that was a very interesting email to get. I would say this was really in the early days of Globetrotters. And I hadn't really kind of done any like sponsorships or any kind of partnerships with anyone, but this was like right up my alley. It sounded perfect. So I think it's interesting to look back at it because it's kind of like an early attempt at what can Globetrotters become? Like what kind of projects can we help? And I think it turned out I think it turned out to a very interesting story. So let's go through it. Why don't you tell us really quick about how this project came about? Like how it all started, how you got the idea and all that. And what was your plan?
This started like really early, around maybe when I was like 10, 11. Me and a friend that I ended up then sailing with, Dan, we were riding our bicycles to ice hockey training each day, and we used to stop at this lake and just talk about how nice it would be to sail around the world. So it kind of started to grow really early on us, and we kept talking about it. And then 2014, I was in Brazil doing my bachelor thesis there. And then I had been training some jiu-jitsu before that, and then I started training a bit more there. And then I just trained there for like 6 months, and I started talking more to Dan about like, should we actually do this? Or so then we really need to make this happen. And then when I got back to Sweden, this was in like right before I contacted you, I would say there early 2015. And he had this old boat from 1969, and we just said like, okay, should we do with that boat? And we said like, oh, it's a bit too worn out, and maybe we should try to buy a bigger one and that's more prepared for heavy sailing. But we went and had a look at a few boats, but after some time we just said like, oh, we're going to start with this boat. But so I think we bought it or Dan bought it for 2,000 euros or something.
$3,000 in my notes.
Yeah, something roughly around that. A few years back then, and then I just paid half, and then we owned a boat, and I rented out my apartment, and I had a job then, so I just said that I could only work for like another 4 months or something, and then I moved into.
What was your job?
So I was in a group that was testing for like different parameters to get the screens and everything for cellular phones and computers, etc. You have this LED that connects the dots or connects electricity within the devices. So within this group, we tried to get the dots as small as possible, the LED dots. So we were doing testing. Did
you know anything about sailing at all before you kind of purchased the boat?
Not really. I've done maybe like 1 or 2 weeks of sailing before this, where I actually didn't sail that much myself. So.
And then you bought a tiny boat from the 60s to sail around the world in. sailboat.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Good. Just to get it straight.
Yeah. So I don't know. We've just been reading on it online and a few books about sailing. So we pretty much just jumped right in. Dan had been doing some sailing, so not a lot, but a lot more than me at least. So he knew how to set sail and navigate the boat.
The very basics.
Exactly.
Turn left and right.
Yeah, we were starting to get advice from people and checking out forums on the internet, like what do you need to know to sail around the world, etc. But if you're going to follow all of that advice, you will be practicing sailing for roughly like 20 years full time. So, and I think there's a bit of a misconception there. Like when we started in Stockholm, we're not starting and just going around the world, or that wasn't the aim. Like you start and then maybe you do one day of sailing and then another day and then another day. So, I mean, it's possible to take the problems as they come and solve them on the way.
Well, and I think in this early process, I think we actually kind of brainstormed quite a bit together. You were so early in the project that I just jumped right into it and had some ideas for it. I thought like we got to put you on the website and make like a map so we can follow your route and Instagram, and we can use the Globetrotters community to get some guests on the boat, and I had all these good ideas. We even got a sticker on the boat. Right? I'm going to put some pictures on the podcast page for this, but there are stickers on the boat. It looked very official. Looked pretty good.
Yeah, it was super cool. I was happy about the stickers.
Yeah.
That actually worked well.
Yeah.
I was afraid that you were going to send them and then I was just going to mess up the attachment on it. So
we nailed it first try.
Yeah.
And your route, your planned route was very ambitious. And now knowing that you just kind of Googled how to sail around the world, the route looks even crazier. I'll just briefly go through it here. Stockholm, Copenhagen, Scotland, Wales, Portugal, Canary Islands, cross the Atlantic, Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, French Polynesia, Fiji, New Zealand, Australia, Thailand, Maldives, Seychelles, Mauritius, Madagascar, South Africa, cross the Atlantic again, Brazil, Caribbean, cross the Atlantic, Azores, back to Sweden. You came up with this after just Googling how to sail around the world.
Yeah, exactly. There's you can check out the weather maps and then you will find how you should sail. So there's plenty of advice online, and many people go these routes, and you have to be in certain seasons, or you don't have to be. Like now, when we actually left, we went in the wrong season, but we knew about it at least. So it's hard to say, but I mean, you will get a much more pleasant sailing if you follow the season, and you will have winds and currents in the correct direction without risking your life too much.
Right. So after a while, I don't know how long you prepared this, but it was like at least 6 months or something, right? You finally kind of actually started sailing. So what was your initial, I even talked about jumping on the boat from Copenhagen to Scotland. But what did you go initially? I don't remember exactly. You planned to go down through Europe, right? On like rivers or something?
Yeah, I mean, it changed all the time because first we were planning on leaving. We started with a project, say, February, and we planned on leaving in June, July when it's nice and hot in Stockholm, Sweden. So, but that didn't happen. Like everything took longer than we had expected, which maybe we should have expected because there was a lot of work to do and we have never done it before. Like we tore out everything in the boat and we pretty much redone the whole boat. Yeah. We laminated the original rudder and we built new ones, and it just took so much time, and it was kind of depressing because where we worked, Dan sold his house and the new owners moved in, and we hadn't moved the boat from the lawn yet. So, but they were kind of nice. They were like, "Oh, I can stay here for a while if you like to." So, and then it just like the original sailing plan was that we could leave in say at least August, like late August, then we could go there. But we started in November, so everyone was taking the boats out of the water, and we were sort of like, it's gonna start snowing soon, and it's gonna be winter, and we didn't want to give up, so we were like working a lot to just get it ready. And I think this is a project that it never gets ready. Like you can work on a boat like this for 5-6 years, and you will still have things to do. So like when it started to get colder and colder, and we were kind of like, we have to leave really soon to escape the ice, then we just decided we're just leaving, and we fixed everything on the way. So it's like the first night we could actually see the what's the word for it in English? Brygga, the place where we had the boat. Like we just sailed maybe 2 hours out and dropped the anchor there and slept there just so we would leave. And after like no electricity were working on the boat, so we were trying to fix that as we were sailing. So, and we were on a quite tight budget as well, so we didn't want to get fined from the Coastal Guard for sailing without lights on the night. So slowly we were moving south in Sweden, but it went really slow. And when we got maybe what could it be, like 60 kilometers from Stockholm, Carway down south, Dan got an infection in his knee. So we've been kind of working really hard to get there for a week. And when we got there to this small emergency hospital, they just said like, oh, you need to go to Stockholm and get that checked out. And we're like, do you know how much work we've done to to leave Stockholm?
It took us 8 months to get here.
Exactly. So yeah, he needed to go back to Stockholm and see that he didn't have blood poisoning. So after a few days there, he got back and we could start sailing again. But due to social conflicts, after maybe we've been out for a month, we just couldn't see a way that we could continue without, I don't know, getting really mean towards each other.
Was it like, I mean, you're kind of friends for 20 years before this, right?
Yeah. We grew up together.
And then like being confined on a tiny boat in the winter with a knee infection and not getting anywhere. What do you think went wrong?
I think that we should have had more time with the boat from the start. Like we should have pushed the whole trip 1 year forward, so we could actually get some recovery after living together, and we have to solve all the problems with working on the boat. So, I mean, I like it this way, I like it this way. Why should we have it this way? But we didn't really have time for those sort of conflicts. So I think that each person needed to give up his own thoughts so many times to say like, okay, let's do it this way. So, and since we were working maybe from like morning to night every day, it just was like what you say, the ketchup effect. Like we both thought that, okay, yes, once we get going, this will go, let's get through this. But it was kind of depressing. There's a few other like YouTube sailors that puts videos on their website, and I was laying in the harbor in Nynäshamn when Dan was was at the hospital there for a few days, and it was so cold, and it was just in the boats, you're laying there with like hat on, like full clothes and everything, and then you just watch this videos of people like swimming in the Caribbean and like sailing around the world, and so like, yeah, I'm doing the same thing. It's just fantastic.
And not to forget to mention, this was for you at least actually kind of planned to be a jiu-jitsu boat trip, right? I mean, and you didn't at this point probably do any training, I assume.
I did actually, like trained at a few clubs on the coast of Sweden, just just Googled like jiu-jitsu, MMA, Thai boxing, whatever, and then just put like boxing gloves, gi, no gi, like the whole kit, and just walked there and see what I could find. And there was so that was good, but still it went like a stress factor. I think Dan was a bit annoyed that I went training on the evenings when we got there. Like we had so many things to do on the boat. And for me, and I guess a lot of people can recognize this, like I was like, if I don't get this, I will not be a happy person to be with. I need some release. And it was also, I don't know, like we sort of realized that it would be a lot of months that's going to be like this before we could catch up with like the good weathers, and we would always chase the seasons.
Yeah.
Because first we were plan to go like to Copenhagen and then sail up the coast there and then cross to Scotland. But to do that in December, January, that's kind of like one of the world's hardest types of sails. With the winter storms there, and it's cold, so it's not like beginner sailing. Like even the coast of Sweden during this time is not beginner sailing, but at least you're close to shore, and I don't know, you can get some sort of help in your own language. But so we just felt like, and not only us, like a lot of people were saying like it's suicide to go that way, like go through Europe by the canals. So that was what originally happened. So Dan sailed the boat down there later. So after, I don't know, a month or something like that, we talked and we decided to split up. And I pretty much just took a plane ride back to Stockholm and shaved and had a work interview.
How was that shower? How was that shower? How did that shower feel?
The shower and the shave was super nice, but kind of like, I don't know, it just went in a flash from sitting on a boat, just planning to be 3 years from Sweden, and then just in an instant you're back in like shirt and trying to look super serious to get a job. So it's kind of weird feeling. And I mean, I sort of like shut down mentally just to be able to cope with it. So
I think I can imagine. I mean, obviously a lot of people have kind of dreams. Oh, I should sail the world, or I should, I don't know, quit my job, or dreams of doing big things. But obviously like what always holds you back is the nightmare that it just doesn't work out, that it's not what you expected, or it just did not work like yours. And maybe also the kind of the embarrassment of it. Like there's, I assume there's kind of I felt it sometimes when I've kind of said, okay, I'm going to do this, and it's going to be a little bit wild, like it's not normal to do this. And I guess it's something that's kind of a dream, and probably also for others. And at some little, maybe, I don't know if it's the right thing to say, but you can kind of feel that some people a little bit hope, like inside of them, they hope it's not going to work for you. Like they kind of hope, oh fuck, I wish that was me, because I'm stuck here, and I also want to sail the world. But I really hope it's going to fail, and he's going to come back on a plane in 1 month and have to shave and get a job interview. So I can say like, oh, okay, good. I don't have to try either, because it's definitely not working. Did you, how did that feel? I mean, to kind of, you actually failed at it, like.
Yeah, it felt like this, both for myself. It felt like a huge disappointment, like, and especially towards others as well. Like it's hard to go in with like a half of a mindset to do it. Like you have to say to everyone like, oh yeah, we're going to do this, and like try to convince yourself to get over all the obstacles, because there are plenty of obstacles to do it. And like you say, a lot of people are going to say like, oh, you can't do that. Like you need more experience for that. What you're going to do if this happens, what you're going to do if this happens, and just try to put on more obstacles on the way towards our goal. And so, it felt hard that they were correct in their analysis of it. So absolutely, like it was a tough period to cope with.
Yeah, I think one thing that kind of helps to actually try, and as you said, push through. You guys pushed through. First of all, probably the most horrible relationship IKEA project ever in history of mankind, of building, of fixing up that boat. And then the misery of sailing in Scandinavian winter and like everything failing and hating each other. But I mean, do you feel like there is a part of it, of you pushing through, is like, we're not going to give up because people hope we're going to give up?
I mean, we talked about that as well. And like, but in a way I felt like, at least for me, I can't speak for him, but that I would give up so much, or I do give up so much for this trip, both financially and I'm turning 30, and I just felt like maybe I should get a job after my degree, and might get a lot harder to get a job if I just right after I finish my degree I go sailing. So for me at least, now I don't think like this, but I did then. Like when I look back at it, I had a bit of a panic of leaving that like career path. So I felt just like the price would be too high to push to do it for other people's sake, just to prove like the whole project. Like I just want to travel around, rolling, meeting people, partying, and just having fun. Like chilling in the Caribbean, and that was my vision of this trip. And then I sort of like realized, okay, that's not going to happen, and or at least not for the first year, maybe. And then it's sort of like, okay, will our relationship as friends like survive a year? No, probably not, because it feels like you're nagging each other, and then it feels like the next level is like, okay, now we're really going to start to be mean at each other. And then the goal wasn't just to sail around the world. Like the goal was to have fun.
Yeah, of course.
And then you realize like you're not going to have fun. Like you're just hating every second. And it's hard to get like on the boat. Like we need to collaborate with each other when we're sailing, because he hasn't sailed that much and I hadn't sailed anything. So we needed to communicate all the time. And there's no way to escape from each other except when we are ashore. But then we need to work on things on the boat so that function and plan the next trip the next day. So you never get that break. So it was sort of like a analysis and with just a conclusion, like, okay, we can't just push through and burn everything just to prove that we can do it. It just didn't feel worth it at the moment. And even now in retrospective, I feel like it was the correct choice to make.
Yeah, the fear of public humiliation is very strong in humans, but it's actually not. It's actually probably not a real thing. It is not a real thing. It's not much difference from jiu-jitsu competition. You're afraid of competing because people might watch you lose, but actually nobody's watching. So.
Exactly, no one is really caring about you. So.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, let's move on. So you flew home, got a job, Dan sailed alone to Marseille, right, down to France.
No, first he sailed back to Stockholm with his brother and had a boat there, and then he worked on it the next summer. And then he sailed to Marseille while I was working. So time passes. And how long went there? Like, what is it? A year and a half or half a year? I lost track of time there. But you started talking again, and you kind of did you go in therapy or something? You decided to give it a second try somehow. Why did you change your mind on that? First, I wasn't really thinking that we were going to do it together initially. So I was actually saying to Dan, like, if you don't want to have a sail further, like I can buy the boat and then I was planning on going alone or with another friend or something like that. And then we met up and then we talked, and we just decided to, like, we should at least finish this project together and cross the Atlantic. And then we came to the conclusion that we are just going to do it even if we hate each other. And that was just, that was the game. Like, we didn't have to enjoy ourselves or anything. Like, we should just do it, so we have done it.
The fear of public humiliation is back with
exactly,
a vengeance.
Yeah. Yes. So, because, I don't know, it just felt so ridiculous while telling this story and never actually left Sweden. So we were just like, okay, let's do it. Let's cross the Atlantic. And then we
why did you think it would work the second time? I mean, one thing is to sail 60 kilometers down the coast of Sweden, but the other thing is to cross the fucking Atlantic, Viktor.
Yeah, but I mean, then we had grown more mature, and no, not really. But I think we had some perspective on why it didn't work, and we didn't. We also said, like, okay, we're not gonna change the boat anything. We're just gonna, like, do the most basic fixes to it and just go, and not build like an extra fence or extra sails or like change anything on the boat. We were just gonna go from A to B, from B to C until we crossed the Atlantic. And we had a rule, like, when we were sailing, then we don't talk about the boat trip when we get ashore before we had like a pizza and a beer. So, like, as soon as we got to harbor, we just found like a pizzeria or something similar to that, and then had a few beers, and then we could talk the day after, and that worked superb.
That's a very very manly way of handling it. I'm not sure it would have worked if you were traveling with like a girlfriend or something.
I mean, a lot of couples are doing this, but I can't see that work. Like, since we grew up together, we can be really rude to each other, but still function.
So you solved it with beer.
Exactly.
So you sailed around a little bit, and then you went for the actual crossing of the Atlantic in a tiny boat that's like more than 50 years old, right?
Yeah, but
I think you built yourself from Googling how to fix a boat or something.
Yeah, pretty much. We got some help from a guy here in Sweden that's been sailing small boats around the world. He's a writer. He's around 76, 8 years old. So we just called him and tried to describe our project, and he lives quite maybe 3 hours from Stockholm, but he was like, I don't understand what you mean, guys. Like, I have to come up there. So he came up to us and gave us some ideas and helped us a bit, and also with equipment to the boat, what we were needing and everything. So it was really, really helpful. A lot of people were helpful during the building process.
So how does, okay, and I remember you trained a little bit in the Canaries, and you actually got some training in so far. So how did the actual, like, how was crossing the Atlantic in a small boat with a person you potentially hate? I mean, I live in the Caribbean now. I never thought about this before, but I'm watching the weather forecast of the Atlantic all the time for hurricanes and storms. And like, how was it? I mean, I would be scared shitless if that was me.
I mean, the most scary part was actually in the Mediterranean, just when we're leaving Barcelona to go to Mallorca, but that was also like so stupid of us, but because we met up in Barcelona, and then we said like, okay, let's sail to Mallorca. It's like a 3-day sail, and we were sitting having a beer, just planning the sail trip and watching the weather, and the weather charts were all red. Which means like 20, 25 meters per second. It's quite hard winds. And we were talking to the girl in the bar, and she was like, are you going sailing now, like in December? We're like, yeah. And she's like, now it's the blah, 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 blah winds. And we're like, okay. It's never good when winds tell a name. So, but those days were terrible. I was puking, and we were doing 4-hour shifts, and it's just one of the tillers to the rudder broke, and it was just our first 3 days were just completely awful. And then so we had a few with a lot of rough winds before we came to the Canary Islands. Even outside of Morocco, it was quite bad as well. So we had some time to get used to it.
Were there any huge waves at any point?
Oh yeah. In the Mediterranean, it's a bit more shallow than the Atlantic, so the waves get a lot steeper. So we had waves breaking in over the boat the first 3 days there, and so everything was soaked. Everything was wet, and we just went and slept with all the clothes on and everything, and it was just disgusting.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And how was sailing across the Atlantic? How long did it take?
1 month and 4 days.
Did you bring any books or something?
Yeah, I read your book. Great book.
I wasn't fishing for that answer.
And I actually managed to read 1,000 pages of Swedish history that I've been putting forward, and then you read quite a lot. So we were still late in the season, so we were sort of chased by bad weather and strong winds. So the first maybe 2 weeks since we left Canary Islands were quite rough. We needed to tie ourselves to the beds because when we got hit by waves during the night, I flew over to Dan's side of the boat and just landed on him a couple of times. But otherwise it was quite good. We do a lot of fishing, and so we had fish for at least every other day, and we drank a lot of beers.
Were you ever afraid that the boat was going to sink or something, or I don't know?
In the Mediterranean, I was quite thinking about it when the waves were breaking in over it. But during the Atlantic, you sort of I got a bit numb to it. After being there for every day, it just felt like you were just laughing at it, really. And just thinking it was sort of like a joke because I don't know, I think the most dangerous part was Dan. He got almost hit by a fish in the head, a 1.5 meters skinny, thin fish that just came from the back and missed his head by, I don't know, an inch in high fish. Yeah, high velocity. So,
right.
But yeah, we got a self-steering on the boat to work. So during the Atlantic, we just slept during the nights and for 10 hours or something. So I slept really, really good on the boat. So it was super nice.
Did you have a lot of days where it was really clear and the water was calm, or?
It was quite good wind all the way until we were 3 days before the Barbados. Then it got really bad wind, and that was so frustrating when you were almost there. But the last 2 weeks was super nice. The weather was really nice. It was getting a lot warmer, of course, and so we were just sitting, listening to music, reading books, drinking beers. So it was really swimming. It was just great. But I would say that the 2 first weeks, just the detoxification of impressions from sell your phone, Facebook, Instagram, everything. I think that was kind of scary. It felt like you're. Now I haven't been an alcoholic, but I would say that if you were getting over alcohol or something stuff like that, when the body's detoxing. So I at least were really stressed after 10 days and so super bored. And just, I was writing a journal, and I was sort of don't go sailing again, Victor. You fucking hate this. Don't do it. But after 2 weeks, you get into this calm, sort of a meditative state. Just watching the ocean, just sitting there reading, and it's super nice.
I think obviously, kind of the world we live in is full of instant gratification, like non-stop impressions, and you kind of just flick through stuff all the time. Even before you try to go to bed, it's like, okay, let me just check Facebook and then Reddit and then email and then Messenger and then just this forum, and then when you've done that, let me just check Facebook again because it's been a while since I've been there, and you just kind of like kind of flood your brain with flickers of information all the time. And I think that it sounds healthy. You also from the beginning said that you wanted it to be kind of like an offline project.
Yes.
That's when I convinced you to just at least run an Instagram where you can just post a picture now and then and like one line of text, so we can somehow promote this trip and see if someone on the way wants to jump on and train with you or whatever.
Yeah. I'm not the best on social media.
That's probably not a bad thing, you know.
Yeah, I try to avoid it as much as possible, at least. But yeah.
Okay, so you made it across the Atlantic alive.
Yep.
And then you split up again, right? At some point.
Yeah. So that was sort of planned. So then he needed to go back to his girlfriend, or she needed him to go back. I don't know. And so I spent like a week or something on Barbados. I didn't do any training or anything like that, just went out partying there, and I met another group of Swedish sailors, and we decided to meet up in Grenada again. And then I sailed alone to Grenada, but I just felt like it was just too much hassle to be sailing alone. Like you need to go up every now and then to check for boats, and it was just, I don't know, I didn't enjoy it. Some people like to sail alone. It was just too boring for me. I felt like that, at least, and it would take too much energy to do anything else. So when I got to Grenada, I stayed there for maybe a month, and there they had a college for veterinarians that had a few guys from the state that were rolling. So I was training there, and they had a boxing club there, a local boxing club that I could go to as well. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of nice just staying there a month, just training and swimming and not focusing anything on the boat. Mm.
And then you started sailing with the Swedish guys, huh? The other Swedes.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the girls from the other boat, she put an ad for our boat on just on Facebook, and this Belgian guy from that was living in Mexico or something, he hit me up with a message and said that he wanted to buy the boat, so he came down there and bought the boat. So it's kind of sad in a way to get rid of the boat, but very nice in another way. So then I joined them to Curacao, Bonaire, Aruba. Managed to train at all those places, had jiu-jitsu actually, and then to Colombia.
Right. How long did you stay in Colombia for? That's when you stopped sailing, right?
Yeah, so I stayed with them on their boat for maybe approximately two weeks or something. And then I took a flight to Cali, and my current boss from my job now and another friend and colleague went down there, and we drove some enduro motorcycles. For
California, you mean?
No, Cali, Colombia.
Cali, Colombia, right. I can't be the first one to make that mistake.
So we were there for approximately a week. So I think I was roughly a month in Colombia before leaving to New York.
And then you traveled where? Around the U.S.?
I didn't travel anything. Like, my plan was first to go to New York and rent a car or a motorcycle and then drive to the West Coast and do some mat surfing on the way. but I was just so tired after Colombia and the Caribbean. It just felt like just been partying and drinking, and I just felt like, I just want to log out and train. So, and in New York, I trained at Master Skaya Jiu-Jitsu and Red Planet Muay Thai, and just didn't do anything else for that month. And I didn't go to see the Statue of Liberty, and I went into Manhattan one time, but it was just, I just logging out.
Mm. And did you go to Hawaii from there, or what was the?
Yeah. So straight to Honolulu, Hawaii, and stayed close to Waikiki, and I sort of like just kept going on that path. Found island jiu-jitsu there. It was a super nice place and super nice guys. So just continued my detox of no drinking and just training there. So I broke my finger and maybe something in the hand as well, so I could only do jiu-jitsu. So it's just, I really enjoyed Hawaii, especially the culture and the people there were super nice.
And then you went to Thailand?
Yeah, so finished up within Phuket top team in Thailand, training there for roughly a month, but I injured my neck, so I couldn't train as much. Just did like privates in Muay Thai for a while, and then another friend from Sweden came down for my last month, so we went out to Koh Samui, and I started training there again, but during the sparring I got hit in the head and my neck got messed up again, so
And then to Sweden. So you actually made it around the world.
Almost ish.
Oh, I mean, if you went left and you didn't stop until you hit Sweden again. I mean,
that's true.
Well, you didn't sail all the way around, but I mean, I think it still counts.
Yeah,
so how's your relationship today after the two attempts of sailing and then one success?
It's good. So we keep going strong. But we have no more sailing projects planned.
Well, that's going to be the next question, of course.
We will keep it to coffee and beers.
Do you feel like the whole project was of your whole dream project of sailing around the world? Do you feel like it was a failure or a success when you look back at it?
Both, I would say. I got some mixed feelings about it. Like, it would have been super nice to do the full lap, and it's kind of frustrating when you tried it on. Like, now I know how to do it perfectly-ish, but I feel like if I would have had the knowledge I have today, I would easily know what type of boat do I want, what type of equipment do I want, how should I plan it with guests and everything. Like, it feels crystal clear to me how this trip should have been done. So that's a bit frustrating, but in the other hand, like, I've learned so much about like fixing on the boat, and it's been like a really fun experience, but in another way that I had planned initially.
So if someone else wants to take up this project of sailing around the world, they can just call you. Exactly.
Hit me up with an email and I can do some free consulting.
Right. On the phone. And of course, the question that everybody's probably going to ask is how did you fund this? Like, how did that work financially?
Like, now it was good. Like, I had 2 years of working between the both trips, so to say. So I could save up quite a lot of money, and I had one apartment from the start that I sold, and the real estate market here in Stockholm has been going up quite a lot during the last years. So when I switched apartments, I got some money in between.
And I mean, how much does it cost to live on a boat like you did? Or I mean, not counting your adventure through U.S., Hawaii, Thailand.
Yeah. It's hard to say because I spent quite a lot of money we did to buy things for the boat. If you have, my advice would be to buy like a sail ready boat. That's been like us. That's people like doing it like we have done it, but now they're done with it or they gave up early. So you can find one of those boats for roughly 10,000 euros, and they won't drop that much in value if you would actually complete the lap or sail it in Australia, for example. So living on the boat can be super, super cheap. Our problem was that our boat was so small and we didn't have good options for cooking. And everything was wet, and just when we got to an harbor, we really wanted to pay for a docking place with electricity. So we can dry the boat out, and we maybe needed to fix things on the boat. So we needed electricity for our tools. And since the boat is so small and kind of depressing, we just felt like, we should go. We went out to eat every day.
Right.
So if we would have had a little bit bigger boat with a nicer place to cook, etc., we could have reduced it quite a lot. It's possible to live super cheap, but then I would say things are gonna break as well, and everything to a sailboat is expensive. So it's
Do you know where
you need a buffer.
Do you know where your boat is now? Do you kind of follow it or?
No, I think it's still in Grenada.
Like stalking an old girlfriend or something?
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe it's blown away now in the during the hurricane season or something. I don't think the person who bought it know really how to use it. It
sounds like your story.
It sounds like my story, but I think he's in an even worse position than I was in. So, and the boat now, because before he bought the boat, I had sold the engine, so he has no engine, and he doesn't really know how to sail. And to start sailing without an engine in a small harbor, because he said financially that he couldn't buy an engine, so it's just I can't see it working. But yeah.
So, just to kind of wrap this up, would you recommend what you did for others to do something like that? Maybe that is specific, but also kind of in general. Crazy project.
100%. I think the most destructive thing for humans is just do one thing in life and just keep doing it. And I mean, it's impossible to know what you like and what you don't like. And I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, but you never really regret the things that you try and the things that you do. But so I more regret what you didn't do. And I feel strongly the same. And so many people are complaining about their position and I wish I can do that, or I wish I can do that. And everyone can basically do it.
Well, it's not illegal usually.
No, often not.
Often not illegal. That's cool. So, so what's next for you? What now? Oh, you just arrived home, not long ago, right?
Yeah. No. I'm just gonna go to the office to my job tomorrow and have coffee with the colleagues. And
is tomorrow your first day back? No.
No, I'm going to start 3rd of December, so still have some time, but just going to go there and tell them I survived and I will be back. And
you're going to sit there and look out the window from that little desk there and just start crying.
Yeah, exactly. Just working 2-3 days and then start looking for ads for new boats.
Send me an email when you start, and then I'll send you some stickers for whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever vehicle you decide on.
100%.
Well, okay, that was interesting to catch up on this, following your project kind of on the sideline for 4 years. I was just reminded about it recently because now I live on this island and it used to be Swedish, so
Yeah.
still kind of a bit of Swedish stuff here. And now and then there are like little boats with Swedish flags on them in the harbor. And I just walked past one like a few months ago. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I wonder what on earth happened to that crazy project that you kind of gave up and took up again. And then you ended up just going mad traveling. So that's actually how I just recently got to think about it again. But it was nice to catch up on it. And I guess people can kind of, I know you're not super active on the Instagram thing, but there's a little bit to follow there. It's the Instagram username is BJJ Globetrotters Boat, and there are a few pictures and stuff from the trip, but obviously you're offline most of the time.
Yeah, we have a lot of video from the trip. So I might throw it up on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, I remember one of your early ideas was to make like a video kind of build up on YouTube, but
100%. So we bought the GoPro and everything.
Well, it's been 4 years, Victor, so I'm not going to hold my breath for it. It's fine. It's okay. I think it was a very cool project to follow, and I mean, it was for me to kind of join in a little bit on the sideline with just very little. Was very nice, and it was very inspiring for the whole BJJ Globetrotters project at a time where it was really just kind of taking shape. So I hope if there's anyone else out there with like big dreams and crazy projects that maybe I can be involved somehow. And now when I can't join myself, at least I would be happy to help whatever I can with the Globetrotters community.
Yeah, it's cool.
So, well, good luck with your getting back to the office. Send me like you have to post. I know you don't do social media much, but you have to at least send me a picture of you being really like a really sad selfie from the office, and then I'll post it. I'll post it in the members of the BJJ Globetrotters Facebook group.
Yeah, we will see. Maybe.
Yeah. Or maybe you just fucking love it to be back, and you're never gonna touch a boat again.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how I plan to do it, at least.
All right, man. Well, thanks for calling in to my basement, and we'll stay in touch. I'll talk to you in a few weeks when you hate your job and you're on your way for something else.
Yeah, thank you, Christian. Great work.
All right, have a nice day, man.
You as well. Cheers.
Thanks. Take care, man. Bye. So that was it. What else is going on at the BJJ Globetrotters? I think I randomly looked at the count of affiliated academies, and it was at 592 or something. So I think at this point, of course, completely depending on how you define an affiliation, which I think it can be completely individual. But I guess you can somehow say we might be the biggest affiliation in the world, which I think is kind of funny because that was never like. BJJ Globetrotters was never really intended to be an affiliation. I still see the affiliation part in quotes as kind of a small corner of what we do. And I guess, I mean, the thing with BJJ Globetrotters as an affiliation, you can kind of you kind of decide what you want to use it for. Some people do it as like a full-on traditional affiliation where they get like all their belt promotions from, I mean, networking access to black belts instructors and signatures for the IBJJF competitions and all that stuff. Like pretty much everything that you want from regular or classic affiliation. Invite instructors for seminars and get help with like belt promotions and all that stuff. And that's totally fine. It's completely up to people what they want to use it for. And other people just in the other extreme end of it, like a lot of academies don't really use it for anything other than just kind of being on the list. So they're listed if some travelers are looking for a traveler friendly place to train. But I think in between those two extremes are pretty much every variation of how you can imagine an affiliation to be. And it's pretty much how I want it to be. I don't want it to be any set kind of rules. It's to affiliate with BJJ Globetrotters is pretty much a very simple process. There are no requirements, never going to be any payments for it. The only requirement pretty much is that you always allow travelers to train for 1 week for free minimum, and you don't deny any members to train anywhere else. So it's pretty much it's very simple, and you can use it for what you want. I'm not saying traditional affiliations are necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. I guess it completely depends on the individual situation, but I think there's room for an alternative like what we do, where you can pretty much be unaffiliated and affiliated at the same time, and BJJ Globetrotters is just a big flat hierarchy of resources that you can use for whatever you want. Some people use it to travel, some people use it for like pretty much to learn jiu-jitsu, to get like technical input from instructors, to network. Some people use it just for competing, because IBJJF has set up a system that pretty much demand the existence of affiliations and hierarchy before people can even compete in their events. But yeah, anyway, regardless of how you look at it, 592 academies, I think that's pretty good. I think we should aim for a 1,000 at some point for no particular reason other than just a nice round number. The whole talk about affiliations and hierarchy and belts and all that stuff is that's a longer talk. I may or may not save for another episode. But regardless, I think an interesting thought experiment you could do is would affiliations exist if there were no belts in jiu-jitsu? I mean, obviously you can just look at other kind of sports like Thai boxing or MMA, wrestling, which is kind of the same, just a little bit different. Like MMA is kind of the same sport as jiu-jitsu, just with strikes, pretty much. But there are no belts, and affiliations do not exist. So that's an interesting thought to play with a little bit. But anyway, let's leave it at that. And we also just announced pretty much all the camps for next year, for 2019. We're going to do 11 camps next year. That's what we're aiming for, and they're all announced at this point, and the registration is open. So far, I think we've booked people have booked more than 680 tickets as of today. So it's going to be a busy year as always, and I'm really looking forward to it. There are a few new exciting locations that we're going to. We also have a little project of making a kind of a this is just a completely random idea that happened, but we wanted to do like a poster with an annual like Globetrotters family portrait, and this was when we sat down and counted the affiliated academy and realized, oh shit, there's a lot of people here. We should do like a family portrait for Christmas, like a really ugly one with sweaters. But it's probably a bit too ambitious to ask like 50,000 people to wear sweaters for a picture. So we've just been asking everyone to send us group pictures from their academies, and we'll put it all together for like one big poster for New Year. So far, I think we have like several hundred group pictures, so it's going to be an interesting one. We'll put it online for free download, of course. So that's it for the 10th episode of the BJJ Globetrotters Pirate Radio podcast. Pretty happy we managed to do 10 episodes. It took a little while to get the 10th recorded, but I'm back at it, and things are a little bit easy now with when I don't have like 5 camps coming up in the next few months. I'm very excited to be back at the podcast project, and thank you for listening. If you want to listen to some of the old episodes or subscribe to future ones, just go to bjjglobetrotters.com/podcast. And of course, anything else you need to know about BJJ Globetrotters, just check out bjjglobetrotters.com. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.